Tens of millions of families with Alzheimer's disease and dementia all over the world, including our family. We are Alz In The Fam. I'm Alan Fair.
And I'm Polly Fair Noyes. We're siblings, we are parents, but we're also caregivers.
This is our podcast. This is our support group. Welcome to our family. Alzheimer's sucks, but this family lives, laughs, and learns as we fight for a cure. Welcome. All right, so really cool episode of Alz In The Fam today. Our mother, who has Alzheimer's, is also the mother-in-law of our four spouses. And so today, the four of us siblings welcome our husbands and wife to share their perspective of experiencing Alzheimer's through the lens of being a son or a daughter-in-law. So we're going to go around and have each of us introduce our spouses. Polly, why don't we start with you?
Hey, everyone. Well, today we welcome my husband, Steve. We've been married for, is it 32, 34 years?
Yeah, okay.
Long time.
Yeah,
anyway.
long time.
Who wants to go next?
I'll go next. This is my husband, Mike, and we have been married 28 years. So welcome, Mike. Thanks for being on.
Glad to be on.
And this is my husband, Paul. We've been married almost 27 years. And I have to say, he's definitely my better half, especially in the morning.
And I think I'm correct in saying this. I kind of want to quiz you, Tina, as to how long we've been married. But I think it'll be 18 years this year that we've been married.
Sounds right.
Wow. Seems like
We
yesterday.
still look like we're about 18 years old, though, don't
Yes. Yeah. I think you got married when you were 18. So now you're only 36, right?
Right. Yeah. 35, 36. Around.
Yeah. Perfect.
So let's talk a little bit about our mom, your mother-in-law, Carmen, and I'd love to hear from Paul. Tell us a little bit about Carmen before she got sick.
Yeah, sure. First off, the brothers-in-law tend to call Carmen Mom out of affection for her, obviously. And the one thing that I noticed about Carmen right away when I first met her was how much she really reminded me of my mother. They are a couple months apart in age. So from the same, generation, they were, just both very active individuals. I would say stylish people, stylish women, vibrant. And, I just thought that she really exemplified what it means to be a very caring mother for her children. And it was obvious how much, she cared for all of you guys on the call.
If I could add to that, it would be that she really reveled in the family. She was at her happiest when everybody was together. She was already, a happy person to begin with, but when everybody was together, that's when she beamed. She really glowed and radiated.
And just to add, she loved being around the grandkids. She was that was the highlight, I think, of her day, her week, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, nice to remember that her sense of style, and nice to think about your mom as well. They actually kind of looked alike a little bit, even, which is very, very cool. So Steve, who is Polly's husband, what's your earliest memory of realizing that something was off or not quite right with Carmen?
It was a number of things. In fact, if you go to alts.org, 10 signs, it gives you the 10 signs. And among the things that we noticed were the long walks in Olney and worrying about her finding her way home. that was a real concern. But there were times when there could be gaps in the conversation, a little bit of general confusion. When she was here, she would tend to look out the window and be very concerned with the weather, and oftentimes repeating the same thing, and putting away the dishes in curious locations, but always trying to be helpful.
Nothing like finding a plate in the cereal cabinet.
That's right.
Every day's an adventure. Yeah.
Or the refrigerator.
That's right.
And so, Tina, you have an interesting memory of realizing that something wasn't quite right with Carmen. We kind of track her descent into Alzheimer's. It sort of hits the 11-year trajectory of our oldest son's life. And so there was this incident when he was just an infant with her. And tell us that story.
Yeah, I think what's interesting for us is that before we had children, we went down to Virginia, 2 times a year. So we weren't in the day-to-day to really see the changes and really, see what was going on. And when we had Marcos, I remember, I think he was like 9 months, and it was the first time Alan and I both had to travel for work at the same week. But we were excited that, Carmen was retired and was there, and she was amazing with our kids and so patient, way more patient than I am. And she said, I'll take care of Marcos, because my mom was working at the time, and my mom can take him on the weekend. I believe it was one day in, we were both out of town, and Polly called Alan and said, no, she cannot take care of Marcos. And what we discovered is that it was in the summer, and she had wrapped him up in blankets and layered him in clothes and kept thinking he was cold, and he developed a rash, and then she thought he was sick. So at that point, I think Polly, it was you that took him over to my mom's house pretty much earlier than anticipated in the trip. But we came to this realization that, wow, we were looking forward to having Carmen in their life in such a way, and that realization that she couldn't do it, that she wasn't going to be able to do it, it was hard.
Yeah, which was tough on us because we saw what a wonderful grandmother she was to all of your kids, and with Tina and I being, 8 to 12 years younger than all of you, we kind of felt, a little cheated and disappointed in that our kids wouldn't be able to have the same type of relationship with Carmen that your kids were able to. So
yeah, you were gypped a bit. She was a pretty good babysitter. She was the type you could drop the kids overnight and feel 100% comfortable.
Not so much by the time our kids.
No.
I mean, there was even we were asking Tina's mom last night, because ultimately Marcos was delivered to Tina's mother's house, and Tina's mom was even remembering our mom saying that there were ants in the diaper bag, and that was the source of the rash. And there were no ants in the diaper bag. Maybe some mushed bananas and Cheerios, but no.
Yeah. I remember she
no
was
ants.
having a hard time putting the bottles together too.
Yeah.
And being able to put the bottles together and measure. So that we kind of saw a little bit earlier, but didn't think much of it.
Yeah, we kind of knew an early warning sign was, these very sophisticated bottles that maybe your kids didn't grow up with in the Industrial Revolution.
Back when they first invented plastic.
Parts, I guess somewhere in one of those parts it gets rid of the gassiness or something, and less colicky babies. But we kind of knew she isn't going to put that together, right? But whatever, it should still get in his mouth, okay?
You gotta just have the kind with the bag that drops in.
Yeah. The old-fashioned Playtex. Yeah.
Yes.
Alan, this doesn't go to the second question as much as the first, but have to mention the fact that if not for Carmen, I don't know how we would have survived having the twins and all that entailed. And I mean, she was with us essentially 24/7 for how long, honey?
Oh,
I mean,
7 years.
I mean,
7 years.
Yeah.
And speaking of bottles, I remember when our kids had really bad reflux, the doctor wanted us to put rice cereal in their bottles. And I was so overwhelmed myself trying to figure out what that meant and how I was supposed to, feed my kids cereal through a bottle. And she just, said, go to the store, get the bottles. All we have to do is heat up a needle, and then I'm going to put it through the tip and widen it. And she stood there and she must have made, 10 different bottles with different sizes of openings so that we could test them all and make sure that the kids could get their food that way. I relied heavily on her with our twins, heavily. And she was awesome.
Yeah. And I think we saw that transfer of ability. When Mike turned 40, we were going to leave our kids with her. And we just couldn't. It ended up being, and that was sort of at the time when Alan was just coming in. And it was one of the reasons we knew to let Alan know and Tina know that she wasn't really able to do that anymore. We saw that transition because we did not. My mom would come over and help me with my kids or whatever, but didn't watch them as regularly as your guys. But there's all different kinds of grandmas, and she was the grandma that was swinging on the swing set with them, making their food, putting them to bed, making sure that they had socks and a hat on for sure. But never going that far as to the additional swaddling that Marco got.
So to switch gears here. So we're talking about the theme of our episode is talking about a mother-in-law who's sick, but obviously all of our spouses have their own parents, and wanted to talk a little bit about how it's different going through this experience with an in-law rather than your own parents. How is that role as an in-law different?
I can take that. I think as the tip of the spear, so to speak, for my mom's, not really caregiving per se, but care management. It's different in that I'm not that for Carmom. I'm, a support player for Tracy is really how I look at it, and probably not the best that I could be. I certainly could be better.
You're pretty good.
Well, it's, with anything, we all know on this podcast that, feelings of guilt can come in, and, you're never doing enough. And, and it's just hard with my mother's situation. It's been more of a physical decline with the strokes. Right. So it's kind of the exact opposite where, Carmen has all of the physical attributes and everything intact. Primarily, it's the other way where she's lost, the mental faculties. So it's just a different dynamic completely. But again, I think a lot of it has to do with just never feeling like, we're doing enough. Maybe that's.
Well, I think you just take the view that, Carmen's part of the family. You help out where you can, when you're asked, whatever the case may be. So I know we tried to have Carmen at our house quite a bit, just in the early days, just to, let her see the kids a little bit more. We know she didn't like driving down from Olney to Northern Virginia. So, we would go get her, try and have her come down for a weekend or, the holidays. So that way she'd be around family, the grandkids, and, she wouldn't be quite so isolated, up in Olney.
Well, and I want to remember that, there was a lot of going back and forth, but when Mom was at home, she would get afraid, and Mike would go over and, look at the house and come back and be like, there's nothing there. She just forgot that she put her, that she unplugged her own cable, not that anything else happened. And it is kind of that, what Paul said, it's not the primary decision making, but the support, which, Mike was, and all of you guys have been so fantastic about supporting us through the effort, both emotionally, as well as with practical help when you can. So, I mean, it just, I think you kind of just do it. And it's good to reflect back on how lucky we are to have supportive spouses in our lives. And we're the opposite. We just had an incident with my in-laws where Mike was asked to be the primary help when my mother-in-law had an issue. And same thing, it was different in that, and Tina, you guys are in the same situation, where Mike's mom has a spouse living with her that can do a lot, but it really showed us how he's aged as well. And we have to step up and do some of the decision making for them as a couple. So that was sort of different than the situation that we're in with our mom.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point, Bonnie. I think with Carmen, it was always hard because we weren't there, and it's, it's being supportive and not, trying not to, give your own opinions about what should be done. Cause I don't know when Alan wants to come down, it's like you leave your family and you go and focus on your mom. So you're always, and that happens with me, you're always split. Like if I have to go support my parents, then you leave your family behind to fend for themselves for a week or however long it takes, no matter what's going on. So that's, you're giving support in different ways, so you can make sure that that Alan was focusing on the right things and trying to, make decisions. But what I find, and I think I found with Alan, is that was probably the one place that he really always spoke to all of you, his sisters. Like, nobody knows what you're going through like a brother or a sister in that situation. And I've probably gotten closer to my sister than ever in the last 3-4 years, because she's the only one who really understands what we're going through, what's going on, how we can make a decision, how it impacts both of us, because it impacts, both your lives, essentially, whatever decision you're going to make.
Yeah, it's deeply personal when it's your own parent, and it's different when you're the in-law. So Tina's father, Spiro, also has dementia, and his journey in that began later than my mom. So I was a few years into my journey with my parent when Tina's journey with her father was just beginning, and there were times when I had all this sage advice and wisdom that wasn't, despite my best intentions, wasn't coming across that way. And sometimes your job is to just kind of sit back and be supportive and let that individual personal journey with one's parent play out as it's going to, and just find a delicate way of being supportive that might be different of how you might handle it with your own parent. And hopefully we've gotten to a good place with that. So Mike, you had mentioned earlier a little bit about going to get Carmen, and it actually got to the point where her disease progressed to the point where she moved into your house, to yours and Bonnie's house. Tell us a little bit about what that experience was like, trying to take her in.
Yeah. Well, first of all, remember, everything was gradual. So it's not like there was just this one aha moment. It kind of, over time, we had more moments that kind of led us to believe that there was really an issue. But again, at first, it was just trying to get her to our house because, we enjoyed her company. She liked being here. She liked helping cook a little bit. She definitely liked clean. She liked walking. She liked going out with the grandkids and just, having an active life. But then it obviously, we found out that, there started to be these issues. But, in the beginning, it was very easy. She's very pleasant to hang around, very helpful, and was very thankful to be here. So it was, just all in all a pleasant experience. Then over time, you started to notice, again, we had talked about the dishes being put away in an odd spot, or she had a couple go-to recipes that were excellent, but she kind of forgot, well, what were the ingredients and that type of thing. And then we'd have her for a long weekend, and, every morning she packed to go home, and we'd say, well, no, it's, X Christmas weekend, whatever the case may be, you're going to be here for a couple days. But every morning she was, packed and ready to go. So she was losing a little bit touch with reality. And then again, the big thing was, she'd constantly, repeat herself. And it was fine. I liked watching golf while I was cooking on weekends. And, she'd say, "Oh, wouldn't you like to be there?" And, of course you would. It's, icy here, and it's, they're in California. It's gorgeous. So, but, she, several times during the several times,
several hundred.
But, you just kind of shrugged your shoulders, and it's, kind of funny. And you just said, "Yeah, I'd love to be there." But again, it was pleasant while she was here. But then it morphed into where she really needed 24/7, coverage. She liked to walk in our neighborhood and that type of thing. But it was, she was almost like, I don't want to say a toddler, but she was on you the whole time. And you couldn't say, "Well, why don't you sit down and watch this for a little bit while we're going to run an errand?" She'd forget what she was doing. So again, it came to be a 24 hour responsibility, which, we tried to do as best we can, but, obviously with kids' jobs and whatnot, that just, became not a, feasible option long-term.
Yeah, we would rely on the dog to take her on a short walk because he knows how to come back to the house. So it was
What a
really
good
that.
dog.
Yeah, my dog, who walks slow like her now, so it's still okay.
Yeah, perfect.
So
maybe there's a good business in dogs that can be trained for Alzheimer's patients that ensure that they get home.
yeah, I'm sure that I'm sure, because that definitely worked for her. She would go out one way or another, and the dog would eventually pull her back home. And she still knows when she's in front of the house that it's the house.
We think. It's been a while.
It has been a little while, but again, even going to the last time she spent the night here, which was pre-COVID, so it's been over a year. She woke up in the middle of the night and had a night terror. She had no idea. She heard us talking outside the door because she'd gone to bed before us, and was scared out of her mind, thinking that there was a stranger in her home outside of her door, and was screaming and saying she wanted to she was going to call the police, and she had a gun, which of course wasn't true, but that's what she was in a full terror. And, it breaks your heart with that when something like that happens. And finally I was able to get through the terror to make her understand and open the door. And she was still so confused. So to go from her having, we still call it grandma's room in our house where she was staying, and watch that progression through her not understanding at all where she was when she woke up is really a stark contrast.
And technically, we are in Carmen's room here.
Yeah.
Yellow was her favorite color, so we painted the room yellow.
Yeah, bright yellow with summer scenes, birds, and
Broadcasting live from
Grandma's room, which we had to move from downstairs to upstairs because she was afraid. She wanted to be close to us.
I think about her being scared in her house, the house that we grew up in, because when she first started exhibiting symptoms, she'd talk about the noises in the house, and she still had enough of her marbles to know that it was just house sounds, but she was hearing new things, or it's like there was a presence or something else in the house. And it reminded me of being a kid growing up in that house too. And I went through a phase when I was maybe 11 or so, where I was suffering from anxiety and didn't know it was anxiety at the time. But I remember the sound of the furnace kicking in the middle of the night and being scared. And at least I had Mom. I could go and, she could help make me feel better. So to be alone in that house and be scared is just heartbreaking, and certainly one of my earliest memories of that. Well, how do we think Carmen's Alzheimer's has changed our family? How do you think we're different as a result of going through this experience?
Well, I think Tina when she talked about it, at least for us, well, we're supposed to be talking to the spouses, but Tina said that we're all closer. Well, we've always been a close family, so this has brought us closer, but it's really more for you guys to talk about.
I would say that from the outside looking in, so to speak, you have always been a close family, but you're really, really blessed to have each other. The dynamic between each of you and among us is, I think, a little unique, in the context of times. If there was just one of you to contend with this, it would be crippling. But the fact that you've got each of you, many hands make light the burden. Contending with her being, in Olney, was a big deal. And we were the closest. We were a half hour away, but still to be reaching, to be concerned, as Alan said, about her being afraid. And now, she's closest here, but there's just ongoing friction with the degree of what the caregivers believe is right and what the family might see as an opportunity to be a little more caregiving. So misinterpretations or finding common ground, with the facility she's in now is a ongoing battle.
Yeah, I think that's right and well said. Were you going to say something, Polly?
Well, I was just going to say, I think the way it's changed our family the most is we were used to Mom taking care of us. When Steve and I moved into our house so many years ago, Mom was still very well and healthy. We didn't have kids yet. And she, I remember she came and helped us unload the moving truck, set everything up. She had so much energy, did all that. And remember, Steve's brothers came by, and by the time they arrived, Mom had done so much and they were amazed by her. She was always taking care of us, everyone, even when we were adults. And it just changed to us focusing really on taking care of her. And she really loved each of our spouses, and just welcomed them and was kind and had a special relationship with each of the spouses. And I'm glad each of our spouses got to see that, but now it's changed. That's how it's changed our family.
Yeah, no, you're right. She was so amazingly supportive, and coming from a Greek family and a Greek mother who has opinions about everything and everybody, the fact that she just welcomed me with no questions asked, was always supportive, was always so nice. It amazed me how lucky I was to have, such an amazing mother-in-law in my life. And, and I think for us, just being younger and having our kids much older, which I probably would rethink at this point if I had to go back and do it again. I really wish that they had the opportunity to meet her and know her, in the days where she was vibrant. And she, I remember her at the beginning sitting on the floor with them for hours and playing with them, and it's hard for them to remember those days. So, that's definitely something I think about.
Yeah, I want to just say that, the Fair clan, the Fair siblings have really rallied around this. And the way that you guys, for lack of a better phrase, just kind of pass the baton back and forth and keep things just moving is amazing. Tina, you just brought up a really interesting point I was thinking of. With my mom, you guys all met her pre-stroke, which I feel so blessed that's the case, but my kids never did. So they always know, Nana as someone who's been in a wheelchair or in a bed, or just, they never really knew the vibrant person she was. And I'm glad that all of our kids and maybe not so much, with Ava, but they did know Grandma, right? As that person. So that we should all feel blessed for that. That's important.
Yeah.
And I think that us siblings all feel very blessed to have supportive spouses through this. When you think about the sacrifices that all of you have had to make for us in this journey. We couldn't have done this without each other, and couldn't have done this without strong support from our husbands and wife throughout all of this.
It's such an overwhelming challenge for society, though. So many, 50 million people, 5 million in the United States. I mean, it's a brutal thing for everybody to contend with. And some would say there, but for the grace of God, go I.
Very true. Well, we are Alz In The Fam, and sure are great to have a strong, supportive, extended family. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for listening to Alz In The Fam. In the fight against Alzheimer's and dementia, we are all family. Find us at Alz In The Fam on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and on our website, alzinthefampodcast.com. We appreciate you clicking that subscribe button on Apple, Google, Spotify, or whatever your favorite podcast catcher may be. Alzheimer's sucks, but we are in it together. We are Alz In The Family. Talk soon.